When it's one of those nights that you really just don't have much time to make dinner, but you don't want to do takeout or peanut butter and jelly, that's where this video comes into play. I've got several recipes for you that are going to make a really quick and easy dinner in less than 30 minutes. Hey y'all, I'm Mandy, and this is Mandy in the Making. All right, the first spice I'm going to be using is just some black pepper, just a little bit of salt. Next, we're going to do some garlic powder. Okay, so I'm going to start grating up some Parmesan cheese for the sauce. All right, so now we're going to get started on the sauce, and the first thing we need to do is melt a whole stick of butter. So I'm going to put that on there and let that melt down. It shouldn't take long. Now that that is melted, I'm going to add in 2 cups of heavy cream. I'm going to let this heat through before I add the Parmesan cheese. I want to make sure that the heavy cream is good and warm, good and hot. And then I'm going to add in the Parmesan cheese so that it will melt right away. My hubby is just adding some black pepper. Lastly, we're just going to add in a little bit of minced garlic. That's probably equal to about maybe 3 cloves of garlic. All right, so this is now completely done, and what we're going to do is just put this pasta in there and coat it really well. I'm going to let that sit for just a minute to heat the pasta all the way back through because it had been sitting out for just a minute, and then we're going to transfer it to this dish, and then it's going to be time to eat. My friend Chrissy is here. I've known her for, how many years have we known each other?
7 years?
Oh my word.
I know, that's crazy. 7 years, wow. Okay, cool. Get some chicken in here.
Is that good?
Tasty. The chicken is like juicy. What did you season it with?
We seasoned it with garlic powder, paprika, and salt and pepper. Is it good?
Very good.
Yay!
Very good, very good, very good.
Chrissy likes it. First thing we're gonna do is heat up this very large skillet to medium-high heat. We're gonna do half of a green bell pepper, diced, and I'm using half of an onion, not quite even half, really. And I always quarter it up before I put it in the chopper. First thing we're gonna do is add a tablespoon of butter to this hot skillet. The butter has melted, so we're gonna add in a pound of ground beef. So now we're gonna add in the onions and bell pepper. And we're gonna add in about 3 cloves of minced garlic. To this, we're gonna add about 3/4 a cup of ketchup, about a tablespoon or so of brown sugar, a teaspoon or so of chili powder. It says more to taste. We like a lot of chili powder, so about a half a teaspoon of dry mustard, and about a half a cup of water. This part is optional, but we are going to add in 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. Also optional is Tabasco sauce. We didn't have that. We just have Texas Pete, so we're just going to add that in. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce. I'm not sure how much this is, maybe about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon. And for a little extra kick, we're just going to throw a little bit of red pepper flakes in there too. I'm going to add some salt and pepper to taste. And stir all that to combine. And we're gonna let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Let's get it on the hamburger bun. So, true taste test right here.
Here we go. Sloppy Joe's, one of my favorites.
So messy.
You just gotta get in there. Oh wow, look at that. Wow, that is really, really, really good.
Better than the manwich stuff?
Better than the manwich canned stuff for sure. That's really good, very tasty.
I'm really excited about these quesadillas. I think it's a great twist on just regular quesadillas. The first thing I'm gonna do is slice this sirloin steak super thin. This is about 1.25 pounds. We're gonna add 1 teaspoon of seasoning salt, 1 teaspoon of Montreal steak seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Before we get our steak on the stove, I'm gonna go ahead and slice up our bell pepper and our onion that will go inside of our quesadilla. Time to cook the steak. I have this cast iron skillet over medium-high heat. I'm gonna add some EVOO, and we're gonna cook the steak in batches. You wanna make sure you don't overcrowd the pan. Our steak is done, so now we're gonna cook our veggies in this same skillet. We're gonna add 1 teaspoon of the seasoning salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I've got this extra large skillet heated to medium high. I've buttered one side of a tortilla. I'm gonna place that face down, buttered side down. The recipe calls for provolone cheese. We're gonna use a combination of provolone and the hot jalapeno habanero jack from Walmart. We're gonna wait until the cheese melts. Once it melts, we're gonna fold it in half. Here's the tricky part. Hey, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Oh yeah. I'm getting that spice now. That Montreal seasoning. That is really good.
Here's all the ingredients we'll need for tonight's meal, and then I'm gonna be serving it with this kale pecan cranberry salad. The first thing I need to do is just shred up this rotisserie chicken. And now I just need to get my pasta water ready. While I'm waiting on my pasta water to come to a boil, I just wanted to show you that I was preheating the oven to 350. I'm just going to put a little salt in our boiling water, and then I only need about half of this container. This is 1 pound of penne pasta. You only need 1/2 pound for this recipe. I boiled our pasta for about 10 to 11 minutes, and now I'm just draining it and making a mess while I drain it, because that's what I do best, is make messes. I'm gonna add all of our drained pasta back to the pot. I'm also going to be adding in all of our chicken. Next, I'm adding in an entire jar of Prego marinara sauce. It's a 24 ounce. I always add just a little bit of water back to the jar and shake it all up, and then pour the rest of that back in. That just gets all of that extra pasta sauce that's in there, gets it all loose, and you just make sure that you get every last little drop. Now I'm adding in just a couple of teaspoons of Italian seasoning. The entire recipe calls for 2 cups of mozzarella cheese. You're gonna put in half now. The recipe also calls for 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, but I still had some of this left over, this shredded Parmesan cheese, and I'm gonna use more like a cup. Y'all know, if you've been here for a while, we love our cheese, but I'm gonna add about half of that now. Okay, now I'm gonna take this back over to the stove and stir it up really good and put it on medium-low and just let it heat through and melt that cheese, and then we'll be transferring it to a baking dish. Now it's time to make our topping. This is 3/4 a cup of panko breadcrumbs. I'm also gonna add in about 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of garlic powder. And now I'm going to melt down these 2 tablespoons of butter and add that in. And that's gonna go on top of our casserole. I've got a medium-sized baking dish. It's not a 9 by 13. It's more like a 7 by 9 maybe. I sprayed it with some vegetable oil, and now I'm just gonna put all of this yummy goodness on the bottom. Now it's time to add our remaining cheeses on top. So I'm gonna put the rest of our Parmesan cheese and the rest of our mozzarella cheese all over the top, and then we'll come in with those panko breadcrumb mixture and put that on the top before it goes in the oven. Now this is going in the oven at 350 for about 15 minutes, and that's it.
I don't know what I'm getting into here. I just know that it looks good, it smells good. It's pasta loaded with cheese. Cheese on top, I guess cheese within.
And it's got breadcrumbs on top too.
Oh yeah, great flavor in this.
I've got this large skillet I'm heating to medium-high heat. We're not making quite as many sandwiches as the recipe calls for, so I'm not using the exact measurements. I will have the recipe linked below. So this is apple cider vinegar. I've got a little less than, pretty much 1/4 a cup. And I need a tablespoon and just a little extra of sugar. We're gonna bring this up to a boil, and we're gonna make sure that all of the sugar dissolves out. I know this is a very large skillet, and you're probably wondering why in the world I used a large skillet. but there's a method to my madness you'll see in just a second. I've also got my oven preheated to 450. While I'm waiting on that to come to a boil over there, which will be just a second, I'm going to do our spread for the sandwich. It's just 1/4 cup of mayonnaise and 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. The reason why I'm using less apple cider vinegar and sugar is because my bag of coleslaw is not 16 ounces. Mine is a 10-ounce bag, which is gonna be fine for us. Just gonna make sure all of that sugar is dissolved, and it looks like it is. So now we're just going to add this coleslaw mix in here. And we're also gonna throw it on the stove, baby, because that's what we do. I'm just gonna add the lid to this, and we're gonna let all of that soften up for like 8 to 10 minutes. So I'm gonna put a little bit of this Dijon and mayo on each side of the sandwich. Oh, this smells so good. It is softening up really quickly. We're just gonna give it a couple more minutes. Because this bread is so big, I'm gonna use 2 pieces of cheese on 1 slice of bread. Okay, this is done. We're just gonna add some salt and pepper. Okay, let's go put this on the sandwiches, baby. I've got a couple of tablespoons of unsalted butter. I'm gonna melt this really quickly, and then we're just gonna brush the tops. These are going in the 450-degree oven for about 10 minutes. We just want them to get good and toasted. Okay, so we're doing a very impromptu, kind of rushed taste test here because they've got to leave to take Cole to church, to youth group.
Classic Reuben. Really, really, really good.
We are making a creamy broccoli and cheddar soup. This is a copycat version of Panera's soup. I love this soup at Panera, so I have a feeling this one's gonna be a good one. This is a really easy meal. It's only gonna take about 30 minutes. I'm gonna have Steven come help me chop some stuff.
Boo!
I'm gonna shred this cheese. He's gonna chop the onion, and we'll get everything chopped up. Then we'll go put it in the Dutch oven, and it's that simple. So I am shredding the carrots. The directions say to just chop them up along with the broccoli, and then you end up using either an immersion blender or a actual blender at the end of the process. I don't want to do that. That just seems like a huge mess. I don't have an immersion blender, first of all, and I don't want to have to pour my soup into a blender and then back into a pot. So I'm just going to kind of do that beforehand, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna really shred this up super fine, and then I'm gonna cut up the broccoli super fine too. I've got my Dutch oven heated to about medium heat. I'm adding in about 2 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna let that melt down before we saute our onions. We're just gonna soften this up for a couple of minutes. Now I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of butter in. I've got 1/4 cup of flour. I'm gonna sprinkle this over. And we're gonna whisk this together for about a minute before we add in our chicken broth. I've got 2 cups of chicken broth. I'm gonna add about half of that now. Add in the rest. Now I'm gonna add in 2 cups of half and half. I'm just gonna whisk this pretty often, but we're gonna let this cook for a couple of minutes. We're gonna make sure that there's no flour lumps in here. I think we're good. Now I'm gonna add in my 2 carrots that I've shredded, and I'm adding in my broccoli. I've got 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, 1/4 teaspoon of ground mustard, and 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm also gonna add in some salt and pepper. I'm gonna reduce the heat to about medium-low, and we're gonna let this simmer for about 15 minutes or so. That's just to really soften up these vegetables. So it's been about 10 minutes, and we are ready for the cheese. It calls for 2 cups of shredded cheese. I'm just gonna add it in a handful at a time and stir it around. And if this gets too thick, which I have a feeling it's going to, we can always add in a little more chicken broth. I'm gonna reserve a little bit of the cheese to go on top. So it's pretty thick, which we want a thicker consistency, but we do want to thin this out just a little bit, so I am going to add some more chicken broth. Cole has already tested it out, and Cole, what did you say? You should have heard him. He took one bite and he was like, wow.
Yeah, this looks
It looks
tremendous.
amazing. Yes.
Man. Wow.
That's better than Panera. This meal is really quick, but I do have to do some chopping, so I'm gonna get all of that done first. All right, for this meal, we need to separate the green part of the green onion and the white part. So I'm gonna chop up the white part and it's actually gonna get cooked first. The green part of the onion is just for garnish at the end. This is an 8-ounce can of water chestnuts that have been sliced, but we need to chop them up a little bit finer for this dish. I'm gonna heat this really large skillet to about medium heat. All right, now that our skillet is good and hot, I'm gonna add in a couple of tablespoons of sesame oil. I'm gonna add in half of a red onion diced. The white part of our green onion. And 5 cloves of garlic that's been minced. I'm gonna saute all of this until the red onion starts to get pretty soft, so for about 5 minutes or so. Now that our onions are tender, we're gonna add in our ground pork. It calls for a pound. I've got 1.5 pounds here. We're also gonna add in our teaspoon of grated ginger, our 8 ounces of chopped water chestnuts, and about a tablespoon of sriracha sauce. Now we're just gonna cook this until the pork is done. All right, for the topping, we're just going to make a creamy kind of chili sauce. It calls for 1/4 cup of mayo, and a couple of tablespoons of sriracha sauce. Now that our ground pork is cooked through, I'm gonna add in some coleslaw mix. This is 14 ounces, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, and 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. I'm also gonna add some salt and pepper. We're just gonna stir this up and cook it down until the cabbage has pretty much wilted down. It's gonna take about 5 minutes or so.
Egg rolls in a bowl. Man, oh man, this smells so good. I mean, that tastes just like egg roll filling. I mean, exactly like egg roll filling. The flavor, I mean, even the texture with the water chestnuts and the coleslaw. Mmm. Wow.
Okay, I'm gonna cover these with some wax paper. I've got a meat tenderizer here. It's kind of got like the mallet side on one side and then the tenderizer. First, I'm gonna use the flat side. I'm gonna flatten these out just a little bit just so they're easier to tenderize. Now that they're a little bit flatter, I'm gonna use this side and do the tenderizing. All right, I'm gonna transfer these to this glass bowl. And we're gonna pour buttermilk over them and let them marinate for about 2 hours in the buttermilk. You don't want to do it much longer than that. They will start to fall apart on you if you do. So we're gonna cover these and put them in the fridge for about 2 hours. Put 3 eggs in here. We're going to be dipping our pork chops into this. I'm just going to whisk these. Okay, for the coating on the pork, we need 1 sleeve of saltine crackers crushed, and we need 1 cup of this fish fry. This is the Zatarain's seasoned fish fry. Got our pork chops that have been marinating in the buttermilk for about 2 hours. Grab a pork chop and put it directly into the egg mixture. And then right over here. So I've got the pork chop in here. Kelly said to press the mixture into it really well. You don't want to see any of the meat at all. So the temperature of the oil came up to 350 degrees. We're gonna put these in until they're golden brown on each side. Probably about 3 minutes before we need to flip it. All right, while our second batch of pork chops are frying, I'm gonna get this ready. We just added a little nature seasoning to our mayonnaise just to give it a little extra spice. So we had to cut this bad boy in half because it was so big.
I believe I can handle this. The pork is really tender. It's not tough at all. I love the crunch and the crispiness of the crust and the flavors. It's not like anything I've ever had. I don't think I've ever had a deep fried pork chop. This is really, really good. Very tasty.
Tonight we are making a very simple meal, but I'm really looking forward to it. It is a creamy Caesar chicken pasta. We really don't have a lot of chopping to do, but I want to get all of that done before we get started. This is just a little bit of parsley that we will use at the very end. And I just need about a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. So we're gonna cook our chicken breasts in a skillet. This one particular chicken breast is a little bit thicker than the other two, so I'm going to flatten it out just a little bit. Okay, now I just need to season these with salt and pepper. And I will season the other side of these once they go into the pan. I've got my large skillet heated to medium high. I'm gonna add just a little bit of olive oil. And I'm just going to add my chicken in. We're gonna cook these about 8 minutes on each side. You just want to cook it all the way through. So now that it's cooked through, we're just taking it off and we're gonna let it rest for about 10 minutes before we slice it up. I'm gonna wipe out this skillet and we're gonna cook our bacon in this same skillet. Okay, now that our skillet is cleaned out, I've got 6 slices of bacon that I have already chopped up. We're gonna go ahead and cook this all the way through. While my bacon is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and start my pasta water and bring it up to a boil. Now that our bacon is done, I am going to remove it and put it on this plate that I've lined with a paper towel. We are gonna reserve a good bit of the bacon grease to saute our garlic in just a second. In this same pot, I'm gonna take our garlic cloves, which I have minced, and we are just gonna cook these in here until they're fragrant for just about a minute. So now I'm just gonna deglaze our pan with about a half a cup of chicken broth. And now we're gonna add in our Caesar dressing. You need 1 pint or 16 ounces of Caesar dressing. We're gonna combine all of this together and let it warm through. We've got this combined. I'm gonna add in our Parmesan cheese and let it start to melt. And we also need the juice of 1 lemon. This is only half of a lemon, but it was a very big lemon. So I'm gonna add that in now. And we're just gonna let this hang out and do its thing. And I'm gonna go ahead and drain our pasta water. I am gonna reserve a cup of our pasta water. Now I'm just gonna slice up our chicken. Now I'm gonna add all of our pasta into this sauce. We reserved a cup of the pasta water just in case the sauce gets a little too thick. We are ready to add the chicken and the bacon and the parsley. I'm starving and this smells so good. Oh, I don't know if you caught that, but that was 2 thumbs up as soon as he stuck it in his mouth.
Wow.
That good?
That is so
Caesar,
simple, but
yeah.
oh my word.
That Caesar dressing. I mean, just all of the flavors in there. I mean, the bacon hits that Caesar dressing. There's a little pop of that lemon. I don't think it would matter what kind of meat you use. Chicken, maybe chicken sausage.
Chicken sausage would be good. Just so long as you put the bacon on.
Oh yeah.
That matters. It is garlic butter shrimp scampi, and we're gonna do a side of broccoli and a side of riced cauliflower. Very low carb. I've got my broccoli steaming here on the stove, and I did my riced cauliflower in the microwave. And now we're gonna get started on the shrimp. I've got my large skillet heated to about medium-high heat. I'm gonna add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of butter, and we're gonna let that melt. I've got about 4 cloves of garlic that have been minced. We're gonna saute this for like 30 seconds. Now I'm gonna add in my pound of medium shrimp. This has been peeled and deveined, but the tail is on. We're gonna cook these for about 30 seconds to a minute on one side. I'm adding some salt and pepper. These are about medium-sized shrimp. They're gonna cook through really quickly. Okay, these have cooked on this second side for about a minute. We're gonna take these out. I'm gonna put them on this plate and let them rest for just a minute, just so that we don't overcook them. And we're gonna do a little something extra to the sauce. Then add in 2 more tablespoons of butter and let that melt down. It's really important that you don't overcook your shrimp. If you've ever had shrimp that is rubbery, you know why. So it's actually still cooking while it's sitting there, but we're gonna let it rest for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll add it back into the sauce just to warm it back through. And we're gonna be done in just a couple of minutes. Now I'm gonna add in about 1/4 cup of white wine. If you don't wanna use white wine, you can use chicken stock. I'm also adding in a couple of tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. We're gonna let this reduce down for about a minute or 2 just to get the alcohol out. And this next step is optional, but we do like a little bit of heat with our food. So I'm gonna add in just a little bit of crushed red pepper. So right before I add in my shrimp, I'm gonna turn off the heat. I'm gonna add my shrimp back in. And we're gonna add about 1/4 cup of chopped parsley.
Yeah, this looks really good. I'm excited by this.
It smells really good.
Yes. Wow.
That's good.
That is a lot of fancy flavors in there. Here's your dukes coming right up. Yay!
That could have gone terribly bad. I feel like I have a hair. I do.
You do have hairs.
Shut up. I think I got it. It's our last wheel of the meat.
That's in the book.
Chop that pepper.
Bloopers right there. Oh man. I share it. I'm gonna share stuff. It's gonna be good stuff too.
Are you getting old ready?
I'm getting old ready.
Old.
Old.
Okay.
See? Old. Old.
Yeah.
Grace, get out. Oh, that cat. She said, I'm not in the kitchen. I'm right outside the kitchen. No. Stop. Stop. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say.
I'm not doing it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Shh. This is the ham we're going to use. And we just need to make it in smaller chunks. And that's it. You tell them. You tell them.
Okay. Can't do anything now. Okay. Shh.
The ham's too chunky. You got some chunky ham over there, girl. What in the world is that?
Shut up.
Little puppet.
I had some leftover chicken. What happens to leftover chicken?
You're going down.
I can do this. I don't want to cook.
It pops me, baby. It pops me. It's our 3rd meal of the week.
Can I put cheese on this slice?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead. You're supposed to do it at the end, but I did it wrong. It's fine.
Oh.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh.
No, go ahead. No.
Sure.
Go ahead. Yes.
Does this mean I get to eat this piece?
Yes, eat that piece.
Yay! Thank you, Judy, for sending this over. This is one of my favorite sandwiches. Thank you, Judy, for sending this over. This is one of my favorites. I can't speak.
Earlier, so I'm filming it now. And my son is playing the piano. Hey y'all, it's our favorite. Tonight we're gonna try a new one to us. It is called fried